What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JRich, back for another Across the Pod with my main man, Tom. Tom, Season 2 is upon us. Game Week 1 is upon us. And I am oh so excited to be back once again with you. Now, much easier for you. I know what I'm doing. I understand the rules. I understand the scoring system. But Game Week 1 is upon us, and we have a big decision to make. Today, we're going to go through our top targets, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and of course, pick our team at the end. But how are you doing, my friend? And I got to ask you before the season starts, who do you got winning the league this year?
Ooh, tough question. And it's nice to be back. I can't believe it's a year since we embarked on this journey. It's unbelievable. In terms of winning the league, it's tough not to pick Newcastle. Only joking. Yes. It's kind of been a tough tough few weeks for us. So I think the less we talk about Newcastle, the better. But I mean, this year I'm really excited for the EPL season. I think Chelsea look good. I think Arsenal will be strong again with a few additions. I think Liverpool are going to be really hard to bet against. My money would be on Liverpool. But then again, like City are making good signings. They look like they're playing well. So I think this year out of anyone's probably going to be the closest it's been. And yeah, like you said, you know everything that's going on now. I don't even know why I need to be here. But it's nice to be back for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think this year's going to be so top heavy, but I'm really, really excited. Should be a lot of scoring. And of course, for us in FPL, that's what we want to see. So let's get right into it, Tom, because we have your notes, as always, ready to go. So let's talk about where you want to kick off this first game week preview for game week 1.
Let's go with the defenders. Let's start at the back and then we'll move forward. I think keeper's quite easy. We can cover it at the end. But obviously this year we've got the addition of the DefCon points, so defensive contributions. So I think it's really interesting to see not just the wing backs, but also focusing on now the central defenders as well. And I actually think there's probably a lot more value in the centre backs than wing backs. I think the way that my team's shaping up has a lot more centre backs in it. And I think you can see on the left-hand side there, in terms of projected points for game week 1 to 8, you can see Lacroix, centre back, Munoz, wing back, but then it's centre back, all the way down pretty much. So I just think this team structure now, obviously attacking returns is fantastic, but now with the defensive contributions, I think if you want more consistency and you want to just get a set and forget defense, I'm definitely looking at the likes of Murillo for Forest, Tarkowski for Everton. I think Munoz is still great and probably one of the only wing backs I would consider, maybe again, as well as like Pedro Porro. And I think Munoz is a great option in terms of assists, goal. I think he had 10 goal involvements last season, the odd clean sheet and some defensive contribution. I think they're 0.5% a game. So still really, really good. But other than that, I'm looking at centre backs completely.
Really is, yeah. And I mean, obviously with the defensive contributions and just the way that the structure of the defenders is right now, they are more expensive. And so you're going to have to really, I think, in terms of just the strategy, pick a player that you want to hopefully have for a long period of time, so you're not switching defenders in and out. Because if you're taking a 5.5 million defender, it's much different than last year when we're kind of just filling our teams with 4.5, maybe a 5 mil defender here or a Gabriel on the very, very high end. There's a lot of guys that are talented, they're going to score points that are in that 5, 6 range. That's going to make it a little bit more difficult. So I do kind of agree with you on Lacroix, but I do like Munoz still. Like I do still like the fact you're going to have those attacking returns. Now, again, Palace this season probably going to be a little bit worse than they were last year, and we're kind of waiting to see if Eze ultimately gets transferred out as well. But I looked at Gavardio at 6 million, right? And we know he's going to have some attacking returns. We know he's still going to get forward, but probably going to be playing more of a center back role. And as you mentioned, getting those defensive returns as well. So I'd almost want to start there depending on where we go with the schedule. But I still think for my team, I want to have a few more wing backs so I can get those attacking returns, but I definitely see where you're coming from with some of these center backs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a balance to be had. I think it's kind of weighing up whether you want to go for like the risk of getting attacking returns and the excitement of getting, 8 Nurid, for instance, on the right-hand side. His biggest return last season was 14. So I think there's some across the board, but just looking at what Murillo's, on the right-hand side, the graphic shows what the points would have been, including the DefCon last season. And you can see Murillo's up to like 168 points. Milenkovic is 171. These are astronomical numbers for a £5.5 million player when you're kind of in the realm of what Bowen scores or what Semenyo or Matoma, those sort of players, or even Ismaïla Sarr at like 6.5, 7, 7.5. You're getting the amount of points from a centre-back Obviously, that's reliant on Forest doing as well as they did last season. But if you can pick the right player that's going to get you clean sheets, and with the new bonus points included as well, that kind of favours the centre backs and their defensive play. I think you can see a lot of opportunity there. I do still think there's a lot of value in players like Cucurella and Munoz, Lewis Hall, Pedro Porro. But again, I think it depends how you want to play. I think I made way too many defender transfers last season for like injured players or players who ended up not playing, like Rico Lewis and things like that. It gives me PTSD thinking about those. But basically, I just want to set three, I think at least two centre backs and maybe one attacking that are just going to play every week in a team. And I know I'm just going to set and forget them, rather than just hoping for like a 4.0 mid defender player who's going to be playing or otherwise. But that's kind of where my head's at. I guess later on we can kind of talk about the specific players and think about our team as well.
Yeah, no, I like that, right? And that's where, it's easy to look at it and say, well, you just want guys that are going to score points, they're going to attack. But I mean, you could look to a Frimpong who's $6.5 million, and yeah, he's probably going to get more attacking returns. But if he's doing nothing defensively, that floor and that bottom that you're going to get from your defenders weekly is definitely going to be much lower compared to some of these guys that, as you mentioned, play every week and have a very good shot at getting those bonus points weekly.
Yeah, exactly. I just think there's so much value in having a 90-minute player, and it's kind of why even for the forwards, I'm thinking about going without Joao Pedro, and otherwise just from like last season, I just think, that's the thing, is rotation is going to be such a pain this season. I know Joao Pedro is in the form of his life, scored in every preseason game pretty much, scored in the Club World Cup, looks like he's on fire, and Chelsea look fantastic. But if he's only going to play 60 minutes and change with Liam Delap, would I rather just have someone that's going to play every week? And I think that's kind of what we'll come to when we get to forwards. But let's move on to midfielders next, and let's have a little discussion about, I guess, firstly, the DefCon thing is also a consideration in midfield, and I'm seeing a lot of people go with the likes of Elliot Anderson at 5.5 mid, because I think in the last 15 games he was kind of getting it at least if not every game, then every other game. And I think the way that he cemented himself in Forest team, be interesting to see with McAtee coming in, whether that displaces him. Although most Forest fans seem to think he's absolutely nailed. Only 8 attacking returns, but if he's going to get you 4 points per game, and then the option of maybe an attacking return on top for 5.5 million feels quite good value. And then again, there's other players like Bruno Fernandes. I think so. These are the midfielders which hit 4 more points the most, and you can see that players like Bruno Fernandes, 55% of games over 4 points. I can see him being great value this year with, United bringing in Cunha and Burmo, Sesko. He's just going to be absolutely lobbing the ball up front to whoever's there. He takes pens as well. We'll probably get the odd goal. I think he scored 3 goals in pre-season. So I just think at 9 mil, and defensive contributions looks fantastic. A lot of other players on there. I think from a DefCon point of view for midfielders, I'm slightly less excited than the defenders, because it feels like there's so much value in midfield for just like the sake of 2 points. And I guess the other thing to mention with Elliot Anderson is often when he gets the defensive 2 points, he then tends up getting a yellow card. So you're getting, you're playing a player who's only going to get 3, who's getting 3 points. So I think on paper it looks really good, but I just think probably value elsewhere for the midfielders, unless you just need an enabling spot at 5.5. But even then, I think 5.5, I mean, in the bottom right, you can see the best players, supposedly for under 6 mil, a few of the graphics seeing on Twitter. I really like, is it reindeers? Is that how you say it? Am I just thinking of Christmas?
That's what I would have said too, so I'm with you on that. But he is great value, though, playing for City. And that's where, this year compared to last year, and obviously I've only played 2 years, there isn't those 5.5, like under 6 mil guys that it's clear, you want those guys in your team. They're going to have attacking returns. They can do defensive stuff. Like, it's really just those defenders now. And part of that is, these DefCon contributions and kind of the way they're doing it now. But, you talked about Bruno. I do really like Sarr, and I want your take on Sarr maybe a little bit later. As a guy that's a little bit cheaper, if you do want to have 4 very strong midfielders, and especially depending on what you do in the attack, because like the midfield is so stacked right now, and the way that it's shaping up, it's going to be so hard just to have 5 guys all in that 8 to 10 mil range. You can obviously go all the way up to 14.5 with Salah, but there's so many guys in that 7.5 to 10 mil range that it just feels like I want to put all of them in my team. But Bruno, just based off this graphic and everything, being on pens at United, assuming he's still there, I am probably going to have him in my team no matter what.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, he's a lock. He's a no-brainer, like consistently performs, gets around 170 points this season. And now with the added defensive contributions, just makes him even more attractive. So for me, definitely a consideration. I think for those under 7 million midfielders, I see.
Would you want a Gravenberg potentially? Like, he's the kind of player that, again, like, he plays every game. Is he going to do much offensively? Probably not, but maybe he can luck his way into a couple of assists. Like, it's the same reason why you'd have Enzo, right? Because Enzo's not going to be as forward this year that he was last year, but we've seen him get forward and we've seen him provide some attacking returns and get into the box, but I just don't expect the same this year. But is there anyone in that range you're kind of looking at and saying, well, maybe there's a chance if everything kind of goes right?
I think at 5.5, I'd only pick Elliot Anderson as the option in terms of, he gets the odd assist. He scores very rarely, but he's going to play every game and he's going to get probably 4 points for you, as opposed to someone who I just think isn't going to give anything going forward and might get rotated and doesn't play 90 minutes. For me, Elliot, if you look for a defensive 5.5, Elliot Anderson. If you're looking for an attacking 5.5, Reindeer scored 2 goals in preseason in the last one. He does late runs into the box for AC, and he looks absolutely fantastic. And Pep said he's already important to their system, but then again, we know what Pep's like, and I really want to avoid as many Man City players this season, just given that you don't know how they're going to rotate, you don't know how they're going to play. They've got Foden, Cherky, and everyone else along with them, so it's going to be an interesting one. I think Ismaïla Sarr is really interesting. We can talk about him later on. And a few of the other ones. I'm seeing loads of the pros going with, I say pros, but like content creators and people on Twitter going with Ndai for Everton.
Yep.
I don't think his underlying numbers last year were good enough for me to warrant him, but a lot of people are seeing him as good value.
But now he's back in the midfield, right? Because before last year he was a forward, they moved him back to the midfield, and that's probably the main reason why. I still think I prefer Sarr, just the way that he gets up front, the way he attacks. Now, again, there's the issues with Palace and kind of how strong they're going to be offensively, but I'm assuming you saw the goal he scored in the Community Shield, and I'm in on that at 6.5 million.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I show the next page, which is basically whole long-term projections of who's going to get the most goal involvements, you can see Sarr's number 26. For projected 8 goals, 6 assists for 6.5 million. That's actually pretty decent value. He's along the same areas like Mbeumo, Gakpo, Odegaard. So I just think Sarr's going to be great value this year. I think people project him, and his underlying stats are always fantastic. Yeah. So I think he's a good option. And then if you look up towards the top, obviously you've got Haaland, Salah. I think there's going to be a balance between, I'm seeing people go without both. And I actually think the team you can build without either of them is unbelievable. You can basically build the exact team you want, but then again, you don't have Haaland or Salah. Most of the pros going with Salah over Haaland. For me, I still think there's question marks over how involved he's going to be for Liverpool this season with lots of new signings, maybe a change in system. Looks wide. For me, at 4.5 million, he was on penalties, and I think Liverpool are probably the best attacking midfielder, and he did get 344 record-breaking points last season. So it seems silly to be saying it, but I think for my team, I'm going to go without Salah. I think there's so much more value in just getting, you can get Palmer, you can get Saka, Fernandes in the team. Yeah. And then you're kind of spreading your options more evenly. There's not many pivot points from Salah. Or I guess if you get Haaland as well, you just know Haaland's going to do well. But for me, a few of the players down the left-hand side that I'm excited by also include Bowen, Solanke, question marks around it. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone on this list that's kind of surprised you or going, you didn't expect?
One thing that is interesting is Marmoush, right? He's not a player who's overly expensive. Obviously, if you have Haaland in your team, maybe you don't want to add Marmoush as well, but he's pretty damn high up that list. And I wasn't expecting him to be there because, like you said, they still have Foden. And what Foden are we getting this year? We don't know. They brought in Cherky. They brought in Reindeers. They have already a bunch of players. Now, Semenyo may leave. They may bring in Rodrigo. That team is still kind of forming what it's going to become, but he's a guy that whether Haaland was in the lineup or not, he was still very, very effective, and he probably can be even better if Haaland's there for the entire season when it comes to him just getting assists. So that's where he's a guy that I believe he's 9 million, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. I think he's very fairly priced to where if you want to build that GOAT midfield with Saka and Palmer and, Marmoush and whoever you want, Bruno Fernandes, I was building my team that way, and I really like the way it came out because you can also have a strong defense. You kind of have to just figure it out with that forward spot, kind of where you want to go. But we'll see what we do with our team, but I definitely like that. But how do you feel about Pedro? Because you seem skeptical. You said already you aren't sure if you want to have him in the team. He is the most owned player in FPL right now. I'm pretty sure if that's still held from what it was about a week ago. But how do you feel about him this season? Because you talk about, is he going to play 90? Is it going to rotate with Delap? And obviously Chelsea and their prospects this season seem really good, and they're playing very, very well, on top of the fact they have a great opening schedule.
I guess the win-win is if you pick him, he's at a price point that you can easily move to Solanke, Wissa, whoever else to 7.5. And I don't hate starting with Joao Pedro because I think it's a real big risk. Like you say, he's the most owned player. If he does well, his price is going to go up. You're going to get priced out of him.
Yeah.
And if he does badly, you're going to see him probably drop as people very knee-jerk in the first couple of weeks. People are kind of scared and don't want to get left behind. So for me, I want a player who's definitely going to play 90 minutes and they're in good form and they tend to score goals every season. So I'm looking more at Watkins, Bowen for me. I know they're going to play 90 minutes. They got good form. Both scored in pre-season. I think they look really good. I think both will have a toss-up for penalties. I guess that's the only other thing is, I guess none of Joao Pedro doesn't have penalties, but I guess Bowen probably doesn't with Paqueta, and Watkins can't score a penalty to save his life. So I just think... And Solanke hasn't played a single game pre-season, but they said he's going to be ready for the start. Burnley at home, and I think under Thomas Frank they're going to be a lot better in that system. So I think Solanke's a one to watch this season, but I just don't want to start with the player who's had no minutes in pre-season with an injury, and I don't think he'll play 90. So I guess maybe we can run on to what I think the best players are at each level, and then we can use that to pick our own team. So if we start with goalkeepers, I mean, I don't know who you're thinking I'd be interested to hear what you're thinking in your head. But for me, I think if you want someone at 5 mil, you want Sanchez or Sells. It's pretty standard. I think at that price point, they're the best. And then if you want 4.5, most people are picking Kelleher or Verbruggen. I think Kelleher is probably the best option in terms of like 4.5 million goalkeeper. I put Dubravka in there for an option of, if you want 4 million, I think he won't start the season, but I think everyone's backup keeper, you've got a keeper who's actually playing. So I'd go with Dubravka. For me personally, I'm looking at Petrovic at 4.5 for my goalkeeper. I think that Liverpool away fixture is putting a lot of people off Bournemouth assets. But from game week 2 onwards, I think they've got pretty much the best run you could get out of any of the teams starting. So people are scared by that one fixture. I might even put... the Leeds keeper Carl Darlow as my 4.0 midfielder, because I think he's going to start the first week for Leeds and then just avoid that Liverpool fixture for Petrovic and then just switch them, or Dubravka the other way. So that's for me, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I just think Petrovic is being massively overlooked, but otherwise I think Sells is probably the best keeper, closely followed by Sanchez.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to be so defensive this year. We saw it last year. They lost some key pieces to their offense. Like, I just think that if there's one thing we've seen from Forest, even in the preseason, they're going to defend, and they're going to defend very, very well. Sells is going to take a ton of shots and be a great keeper once again. Sanchez just scares me, man. Like, I understand people love the Chelsea start. They have a great start in terms of their fixtures, and it looks really good. But at what point last season did we say, yeah, we believe in Big Bob Sanchez? Pretty much never. And the one thing that, for everything that Chelsea is, I'm still worried about the defense a little bit. Like, Caldwell is going to be out. We already know that. There's talks about potentially replacing him in terms of like his start to the season and what this defense can look like. So with that, I still think the price point is fine. The fixtures are obviously great. They're probably going to win games, but that doesn't impact Sanchez. He still needs to save shots, and I still think this team is going to be very, very good. So if Chelsea's scoring 3-4 goals a game, I could see him allowing one, and it's not a big deal overall. But in terms of scoring points, I just think Sells is a safer option because they're not going to be scoring a ton of points. They're going to be so locked in on defending, getting clean sheets, keeping teams at a goal or less, because that's pretty much the only way they're going to win games unless, some players emerge. So I think I would go Sells over Sanchez personally.
Interesting. Well, good to see we're on the same page. This is going a lot better than last year from what I remember. Defenders, this might be where it all falls apart. But I think these are the only defenders which I've kind of got in every draft is kind of going between these ones. I'm seeing, if we actually start right to left, Virgil van Dijk I'm seeing in a lot of people's teams. And I understand why, is because he's probably in the best team in the league. At 6 mil, he gets quite a lot of goal, has attacking threat. he will have defensive contributions in some games and obviously just pure clean sheets. So I think for a staple start to end of season, I can understand why. But for me, 6 million feels like quite a lot. And I think there's a lot of value at the 5.5 million I think if you don't have a Nottingham Forest defender, I think you're missing out. I think you should definitely have. Milenkovic is unbelievable. I think he would have scored. I think he scored the most points for pretty much any defender last season, other than Guardiola. And he scores goals. Like his goal threat in the box, like he's absolutely massive. So I think if you want goal threat, go Milenkovic. If you want 90-minute man with defensive contributions and maybe bonus points for defending, go Mario. But I think Nico Williams is absolutely fantastic. You save 0.5 million and you get a wing back who has amazing attacking threat, can assist, can score, and actually chips in with defensive contribution. I think gets about 8 or 9 a game on average. So he's pretty close to that threshold as well. And if you need 0.5 to bolster the midfield, I can see why. I think 60% of top 10K players have Nico Williams, and I can see why I'm definitely considering him for my team. Outside of Forest, I think Tarkowski, we mentioned, is just like a defensive contribution monster, but then that's like 4 points a game. Is that good enough for you?
At 5.5 mil, right? That's the problem, I think. And exactly. Especially compared to a Munoz, a Porro, Cucurella for only 0.5 million more. Like all those guys can get some defensive contributions and still provide attacking returns, which is he's an option and he's a bit of a differential, but it makes it tough to have him in the team. Like I really like what you've done here because it's clear if you can find a 5.5 mil defender that you're really happy with, you probably should take them over the 6 mil guy. Like I just probably couldn't see myself putting Van Dijk in the team because as you mentioned with Milenkovic, like I think they have a very similar range of outcomes, especially when it comes to attacking returns. And I'd rather go for a player like Gabriel at the same price tag because I think he can score more goals and have more offensive contributions with a similar clean sheet percentage as a Virgil van Dijk. But as you said, like I think he's 24% in terms of team selection. Van Dijk is, which is kind of surprising. He's the fourth most of any player in the in FPL right now.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree. He's an avoid for me, but only on price point. I think he's still a really good pick, but for me, I see so much more value in getting a 5 mil or 5.5 mil that I think is going to do equally as well. Similarly, why I'm avoiding Cucurella. I know he looks great for Chelsea. He's doing like late runs into the box. He's playing like inverted and going forward, but for me, I and
can't do it with him, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll reconsider, but I just think I don't think Cucurella is going to be all that, but he's very well picked for like the I guess the amateur player on FPL is going to pick Cucurella, whereas for me, I think I'm probably going to avoid it. And similarly with Porro, I think there's so much promise there, but I don't think he actually gets. I guess now with Maddison doing his ACL, he'll be on more set pieces and be more involved. And he does do quite a lot of defensive tackles and things like that. So but then again, Spurs were dreadful last season, and it's hard to tell.
I wouldn't say it looks good right now either for them. I mean, we'll see, especially defensively, right? Like, I definitely have some concerns there.
Yeah, I think at 5.5, I'd much rather have Munoz or Tarkowski or Mario or Milenkovic. And at 5, I'd probably rather have Nico Williams than Porro and save 0.5. So, and I guess we haven't mentioned LaCroix either, but he gets pretty much defensive contributions every single game, and he's 0.5 cheaper than Milenkovic and Mario. So if you want to save even more money, just get him, and he pretty much gets it every single game. That's 4 points a game. Plus, if Palace keep the odd clean sheet, you're looking at a pretty good basis for a defender.
Yeah, and that's where, you talking through the defensive contributions, he seems like a player that you should probably have in your team. He's not quite that 4.5 mil that you want where you're getting really good value, but even at 5 mil compared to some of these other guys, it just seems like a great way to save a little bit that you can reinvest into your forwards and into your midfields, because unless you're planning on not having Salah or Haaland in your team where you have the funds to basically do whatever you want, you're going to want to use that 0.5, that mil that you're saving on some of these defenders, because that's the adjustment that FPL players have to make this year, is them being so much more expensive really constricts what you do in your midfield and in your attack.
Yep, exactly. Couldn't agree more. Well, that's kind of defenders completed easy. Let's go on to midfielders. I think this is where it gets a little bit more difficult, and mostly because I think you mentioned earlier when we were chatting, it's kind of finding the differentials, because the teams feel so template this year. Feels like everyone's going to pick Salah, everyone's going to pick Palmer, they're definitely two in everyone's teams. It feels like everyone will have like a 5.5 enabler, whether that's Reindeers or Anderson, or I'm seeing a lot of teams, I think like over 40% going with Kudus. For me, I don't see much value. I think Kudus will be good, but his goal and assist output is not fantastic. And as you know, you struggle how he's going to play with like Johnson and everyone else. So I think Spurs are going to be figuring out. For me, he's probably an avoid, but I see him in so many teams. And we mentioned earlier, in a lot of people's teams, but it's difficult to tell. Grealish coming in actually probably helps him, even though for me, I think 0.17 goal involvements per game last season is not fantastic, even though he's one of their best players. I just don't think it always translates into output. And then you've got Bruno, who we love and we spoke about. I think he should definitely be in consideration for your team. Wirtz is in a lot of people's teams. You can see him getting upwards of 5 goals and 10 assists this season. He's already got an assist. Doing really well in preseason and Community Shield. So I think Wirtz is an option if you're not going to go with Salah. Ismaïla Sarr, we mentioned, I think he's great value and will do well for Palace. And I think at 6.5 million, there's not many people at 6.5. I'd much rather have Sarr than Undai and have an exciting player who's got much better output.
Yeah.
And then I think you have, I guess the one player that he's in my draft right now, but I just don't know whether there's the value anymore in Bukayo Saka. I don't know how Arsenal are going to play this season. Is he on penalties or is Gyökeres going to take penalties? And if you take penalties away from Saka, is he
way
worth
overpriced?
Yeah.
No, but that's where Saka's tough because I think he's a differential because of that. Where I don't think he's still Bukayo Saka. People are still going to want him in their team. I'm trying to find his.
I think he's
selection
11%
percentage right now. He is 17% across the board right now. But even with that, that's for Saka, that's nothing, right? Like it's really not. And he's enough of a differential to where you are getting a bit of value. And it's funny because like you, I had him in my team right now. And I really want to use him because it just feels like because he was injured last season and he never really came back and showed how good he is once again, that people are kind of sleeping on him. And like you said, if Gyökeres is going to take the pens from him, which I don't think they're going to do, but if it happens, then Gyökeres is all of a sudden a huge value and Saka's a little bit overpriced. I think it's worth the risk early because if the one thing that Arsenal needed all last season was a striker that can actually score, and Saka was still tops in the league in assists, still was great in terms of scoring goals. Like there's still gonna be plenty of opportunities, but now if they have a legitimate striker that is really good, he could be an absolute value at 10 mil. And while everyone wants Palmer because of how good Pedro's playing, how good Delap's playing, and how much we expect from this Chelsea team, Arsenal's still very, very talented and going to score a lot of goals as well in their own right. And Saka's going to be a massive part of that.
Yeah, and Saka's just consistent. Like he will get assists from corners. He does get the odd assist here and there, just bouncing around the box. Scores a lot of goals. I think the last 3 seasons, he's always got over like 200 points. So like he is consistently good. And I think he's being overlooked because he was injured for so much of last season, but only playing 20 games last season, still got 6 goals and 11 assists. So he's almost getting a goal involvement per game scored in preseason. And that's one of the reasons that he's in my draft. I think I'm more nervous because he's a differential. Whereas if everyone had him in his team,
it's fine, right?
I'd be fine. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like Palmer. I actually think Saka will outscore Palmer this season.
Really?
If Saka has penalties, I think Saka
he's got to have penalties for sure.
But otherwise, and that's kind of why Palmer, I think, is in everyone's team. For me, because I'm not going Joao Pedro, I think it makes sense to have Palmer. I think if you have Joao Pedro and you think he's going to play and do well, I'd be semi-tempted to. I think Palmer had like 1 open play goal in like the last 7 or 8 games of last season. So
he really struggled last year, right?
10.5 mil. It's a lot of money to be putting in a player that's getting you the odd assist and not really going as explosive. He had that one game, obviously. Got 4 goals, something crazy in the first half, but then, so I think midfielders, it's a really easy decision to pick the best players, but I think picking the right combination and, like you say, trying to find a differential. I didn't speak about Semenyo, but I think he's a player again that's being overlooked. No one has any Bournemouth players. He got 11 goals, 6 assists last season, which I think is fantastic. It's a 7 million midfielder. I think I can see him doing at least that this season. And I think the other thing with Bournemouth as well is Evan Nielsen, and we'll come to the forward line. But so I guess Evan Nielsen at 7 million, I think that's amazing value for a player who's going to play an attacking Bournemouth side. That's never been Bournemouth's weakness, is attacking and on penalties as well. I think at 7 million, he saves you money from like a Bowen. It's $1 million cheaper, and you can spread that into midfielder defense. And I think, a lot of other interesting assets up front. I don't know if there's any of those which kind of immediately catch your eye.
This has been the hardest part for me, honestly, is figuring out who my attackers are going to be. Because like you, or I guess not like you, like I threw Pedro in the team because I think he's just great value. If Chelsea's great, Pedro's probably going to be great, score a ton of goals, be a great value at 7.5 mil. And then it's, do you want to go up to an Isak who's 10 mil, a Watkins who's 9, a Haaland who's 14, or do you want to kind of stay in that 7.5 range because it's going to give you so much more flexibility in the midfield? And so question for you now, you have your entire kind of target list mapped out here. Do you think you're leaning more towards a 3 striker build or a 5 midfielder build in terms of where you find that value? Because I love Sarr as a 5th midfielder with planning to play 3 strikers, but a lot of people I've seen also have been looking at, is it Gui or the guy from Chelsea that went over to Sunderland now, right? The 19-year-old striker. He's 4.5 mil. He's going to probably start for them. Maybe not start the season, but that's okay because we don't need that. But it just adds so much more to your team and allows you to play 5 of those midfielders that we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's no 4.5 million playing midfielders. So if you want a player who's going to, if you want the balance of your team and you want bench options and fixture changes, I really like the 5 midfield, 2 attacker. And I think there's more value in midfield this year than the attackers. I think that picking the right 2 attackers is going to be really tough this year. And I think that's why I don't want the headache of going with a Fulkrug, a Strand, Larsen, a Wood, a Joao Pedro, Evan Nielsen, Solanke, where I'm like, I don't know where they're at. I don't know how they're going to perform this season. For my head, I'm locked on probably Watkins because I just know he's going to play for. Scored 5 in 5 in pre-season. I know he's a lot more and he's not on penalties, so that's the only question mark. Is Joao Pedro and 1.5 million better than Watkins? Probably, actually. I mean, it's borderline. And then Bowen, it's a shame he's not a midfielder this season because I think he would have been locked in my team if he was a midfielder. He should be a midfielder because he does play on the right wing. So I don't know why he's a forward, but I think he's their talisman. I don't think he's on pens because I think Paqueta will take them, but I think he's probably their best player. So I don't know. There's a lot of question marks over forwards, and I think probably picking 5 good midfielders is a better option. But I think if you're going without Salah and you're going for Haaland instead, and I think 3 forwards is also probably the way to go because I'm genuinely thinking about going without Mo Salah this year.
we said it last year, but it's just so much harder to build a team that's balanced, that you feel confident in, that like you said, going into this year, my biggest goal was, can I just have guys that are going to play? Last year, it was straight stars and scrubs, right? I had 11 guys that were playing every single week, and my bench was getting transferred out, wasn't even in the Prem, injured, and it just created a whole bunch of problems for me down the line, right? So now I'm just trying to find guys that are going to play, or if I do have some of these guys that maybe aren't going to play that early, that are a bit cheaper, there is a path to them down the line, right? And that's where I'm looking at right now. I'm like you, probably going to invest most of my money in the midfield. I want to have those high-end midfielders that are going to be heavily involved offensively, maybe some defensive returns, hopefully on penalties as well. I think that is the key to kind of just keeping a very nice, stable floor for your team in terms of points. And that's where a player like Watkins at 9 mil, I'm just not quite there. And then the other guy I wanted to ask you about, because there's 2 players that there's a lot of questions about right now that aren't on your list. Does anything about you want to put Isak in your team now or like before game week 1 because you believe he's going to go to Liverpool? So you don't have to worry about him. Like, you could start your other forwards. He's going to go to Liverpool at some point, probably after they play Newcastle, because that's what it seems like it's going to happen. But then he's in your team and you don't have to make that transfer down the line.
I don't think so. I think he's unsettled. I think he's probably not full training. His head's not right. He doesn't know what's going to happen. I think even if he gets in time for game week 1 or game week 2, I just don't think it's worth the risk at 10.5 million. You're better off picking someone else and then pivoting to him. If he goes to Liverpool and starts scoring goals, loads of people jump on that bandwagon, but it's not worth taking the risk right now. And also, as a Newcastle fan, there's no way he's going in my team all season. So until he scores a hat-trick for Liverpool, then he goes in. But yeah, I don't know. I think the other question which I have in terms of team structure is, I'm not seeing many people do it, but I've been tinkering with the potential of maybe going 4 at the back, which is like such a weird thing to consider. For this, there's not been much value in defense for like so many years, and people used to play 4 at the back, even 5 at the back before, when it was like Cancelo and Reece James and Trent. The value you could get from those players and that output historically has been better than midfielders of the same price point. And I just think for 5.5, Elliot Anderson's going to get like 130 points, but Munoz last season got like 140, 150.
Yeah.
So I just think, why are we looking at a player like Ismaïla Sarr for 6.5 million when you can save $1 million and get Munoz, who's going to scored last season, I think more than Sarr by 20 points, and he's priced $1 million more. So it's like, in my head, I just need to get over the 4 at the back. It feels defensive. There's not much value, but this year, why not just pick Munoz at 5.5 as your 11th player instead of a midfielder who's going to get you like 2, 3, 4 points? Munoz can really explode. So I think that's just something which I need to have a think about in terms of team structure as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of laid out the case as to why you would make a move like that, and it does make perfect sense, and that's where investing in the top-end talent, it is more expensive, but you're hoping for a 200-point, 220-point return. With Sarr, you kind of know what you're going to get, and again, there's always a chance that he explodes as well, but it's just not as much that you're expecting, and that's where, because I'm just not seeing the value in the 4.5 mil defenders that we had last season because of the new scoring structure, I just don't know how we go about saving that money to put a Haaland or a Salah in our team without really sacrificing somewhere else. And usually, at least last year for us, it was sacrificing the defense. We had 2 4 mil defenders just to save salary to move it into the midfield, into the forward positions. But maybe you want to take a bit out of your midfield to then reallocate it to the forwards and to the defenders.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a 4.5 mil defender is a really tough one this season. There's players like Van der Ven will probably be good, and Diouf for West Ham, a lot of people have him. I know a lot of people have Wan-Bissaka. I think he's the most picked defender.
He's the most picked defender right now, which is crazy.
Which is crazy to me. I just don't see the value in these players that are going to get...
He's 4.5 though, right? So if he can provide some attacking returns, there's no clean sheet potential for him though.
No clean sheet potential. He doesn't get much attacking returns. He's like a 2-point player, so I just don't understand why you wouldn't spend 0.5 more and get someone like Lacroix or Nico Williams. So I think at 4.5, let's wait and see on some of those, and you can pivot down if one really emerges. I know a lot of people are going Goalkeeper for Brighton, but again, I'm getting flashbacks to when everyone picked Barco last season and he got loaned out and didn't play. So I think we can start thinking about our team now.
So where do you want to start with the team? Because I think for me, it still kind of starts up front. And how you want to build up front kind of dictate how you build out the rest of the team. Or if you want to just start with the keepers, we can start with the keepers.
Keeper, well, I guess keeper, for me, it's either do we go cells and play simple, or do you want to go for a 4.5 and pick a... I think cells.
We're going cells, 100%. Cells, He's an easy pick.
Dubravka.
Do you want to go Dubravka for the next one?
We're going to watch you struggle. Just D, that's fine.
There we go.
And then I think we should definitely have a defender for Nottingham Forest, and it's whether we want Nico Williams and save 0.5 or whether we want Milenkovic or Maria.
Who would you recommend? Because it seemed like Milenkovic was the best option.
It's a tough one. I think for now, let's go with Nico Williams, and if we have 0.5 at the end, then let's go with that. I think we can share with Williams. There it is.
Yeah.
I like Tarkowski, but I think Munoz is going to be... I think let's get Munoz in, probably.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
I really like Tarkowski, though, and I really like Lacroix, but then we've got Munoz. We don't want to double up on Palace. Tarkowski's going to get us 4 points a game at least.
Yeah.
I'd be semi-tempted for him. If not, let's maybe see what we have at the end, and we can pick our last defender if it's 4.5 or otherwise.
Do you have any interest in Konza? Very widely picked.
No,
but
no,
4.5, he's just a 4 player. I mean, Gavardio is a player we both really liked, but you
I
don't
love
necessarily want to
Guardiola.
spend up like it's hard to put Gavardio and Cucurella in the team, but I do really like both. It's just the amount you're investing in that defense. Like, is there a 4.5 or a 4 mil defender that we could throw in there to make this happen defensively?
Yeah, I think the only 4.5 mid is maybe Van de Ven, who's going to get defensive contributions as well.
Yeah.
At 4.5, so I'm not really too sure. And I think there's a lot of 4.0 million playing defenders this year. There's Rodon for Leeds, there's Reynaldo for Sunderland, there's Esteve for
Esteve
Burnley.
is most popular, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's going to play every game. So, like, if you want, just like as your at least this year on your fourth and fifth defenders, they're going to be playing 4.0 defenders. And I think they could get the defensive contributions because last season Bednarek would have got a lot more points given, even though Southampton were dreadful and got relegated, he's going to, concede a few, but he's going to get the contributions because they're just defending all game. So I think you don't need to have subs which are 4.5 this year, which is quite nice. So yeah.
All right, let's start with this because I want to see how this plays out. So where do you want to go next? Do you want to go to the midfield or do you want to go to the forward?
I think let's go mid because I think we've both said we like Bruno Fernandes. I think we both maybe thinking Saka. I think we're both maybe thinking Palmer. And then it's like
where are you at on Saka, Palmer? Do you want to go both? Do you want to go one or the other? Where do you want to start?
I think we kind of want both in for now, and then we can maybe drop one depending on because it depends. Are we going to go no Salah? Or are we going to go no Haaland?
I personally would go no Salah
and pick Haaland.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how we're going to make it work with this team because we already have what is this almost 30 million in three guys of our midfield, so we'll have to get a lot cheaper than I think we were at. Do you have any interest in Cunha at 8 million?
No, I don't think Cunha or Mbeumo, they're just too uncertain. And at that price point, I'd much rather have someone else.
Yeah.
I think. Like Wirtz, I think is better at that price point. But
really, see, I really don't like Wirtz this year. I would much rather pay up for Salah than go after Wirtz, only because I get they're going to score a lot of goals, but he's not on pens. I don't think he's going to score very many goals. And so it's like he's not going to do anything defensively as well. And that's the main reason why it's like just pay up for Bruno because he's going to have some defensive contributions. He's obviously going to be on pens. He's going to get a ton of assists because it doesn't matter who he gets the ball to for them to score. It's just he has to figure that out. And then do you have any interest in Marmoush here? Would you want to go a Haaland Marmoush combo?
I would not combo. I think there's one or the other. And I think if you're going to go Haaland, you don't need Marmoush. I would be tempted for Reindeers at 5.5 because it's a really easy pivot to Elliot Anderson.
Yes.
So like if this high risk doesn't pay off, we just go to the player that's going to play 90 and occasionally get us 3 or 4 points. So I kind of like it, and I'd want to be ahead of that curve early because the second he scores, he's going to be up to 5.7 million overnight.
100%. 100%.
So I kind of like that, and it saves us some money to kind of invest elsewhere. Yeah. And I don't hate Joao Pedro up front if that's what you want. If you want Joao
I don't know if we're going to be able to
make
it work, right? Because we want to go Haaland. I mean, we definitely can't go Gyökeres, but we only have 15.5 for 3 more spots. So at that point, we're basically already looking at someone very cheap in the midfield, maybe even a cheap forward as well. But this is where, like, when you go to this guy, he's not ready now, but like at 4.5, it makes it much more viable for us potentially. But we still have to have another cheap midfielder here because we've invested so much everywhere else.
And I'd be tempted, instead of that guy, you could get Fulkrug for 6 million, who's going to play and scoring in preseason for West Ham.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that a little bit more. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, Fulkrug, I mean, he's a fine player, right? It's just he's going to disappear in games. You probably don't want to start him. So it's, do you want to have a player that can play, or do you want to have a player who's literally just a salary dump to help fund everyone else on the team? And this is where I think, to your point, having Cucurella and Gavardio in the same team just doesn't work. We have to find...
We need to cut one down, yeah. Cut one down to, like, Rodon from Leeds, R-O-D-O-N. Oh, I love this new system. There you go. And then we've got Nico Williams, Munoz, and Gvardiol playing every game. And then you've suddenly got a lot more. We pick a 4.5 million midfielder to just sit there, or that striker, and we pick another midfielder.
Would you rather have Sarr over Reindeer? Because that's the move that I'm. Because if we're gonna go cheap here, anyways, right? Like whatever, I had Madison there before, just kind of whatever. If we're gonna go super cheap at the midfield spot, like, would you want to go 4 mil defender? Would you want to go? Let's just go to 5 and kind of see, where everyone's at. But these are basically our options if we're going all the way down to that. Like, let's go 5.5 for midfield and see where everyone's at. So the most popular guys are Ramsey, Reindeer's right, Caicedo, Baliba, of course, because people think he's going to go to Man United. But, outside of that, like Lewis Miley.
Dewsbury Hall is going to play at 5 million as well now that he's transferred out. So
yeah, Xhaka's not bad. Do you think Xhaka would be on pens? Probably not, right?
He could potentially, and he would get a lot of defensive contributions, score goals. So I don't know. I think we'd probably just go with Ramsey at the top for now, and let's just save the extra money
at 4.5, right? And we're 0.5 off of Pedro.
Yeah, which I guess you would then look at moving Gvardiol down to maybe a 5.5, and then you've got like.
I think that's where if you go from Fulkrug to GUI, you have that 1.5 to work with.
Yeah.
Right. You got to wait on him, and you obviously don't want to start him, but it's definitely an option that can work for sure. I love how in the end we just have 2 defenders that are min price, a midfielder that's min price, and probably a forward that's also min price.
Yeah, just get to squeeze the most value out. So I think the balance of this team starting to look a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So.
But in terms of forwards, right, we want 7 mil or less. Gui's still the top guy. Strand Larsen's probably the main one you'd have,
I think Strand Larsen's probably a better pick than Fulkrug, honestly.
Yeah, so you want to pay up for Strand Larsen. That leaves you another 6.5 mil to pick another player there.
But then again, you can have Fulkrug and Evan Nilsson, which I think is probably better.
You could.
So I think that would
if you wanted to go Evan Nilsson and Fulkrug, that could be
then
the
it's
team.
like that, which would be a lot better. But then that's the issue of having like so much money everywhere. But if you just make that team for now and you make the transfers, it's actually not a bad lineup. I do think that there's potential to move Gvardiol down and just make Evan Nilsson, Joao Pedro, and then suddenly you're looking at
You're going to feel a lot better about it, right?
Yeah, you're going to feel better having Joao Pedro over Evan Nilsson, or Fulkrug up to Strand Larsen. So I think we can have this team for now, but I think we need to have a think about whether
do you want to go without Saka? Like if you went off of Saka to another midfielder, you could go Semenyo if you wanted, but like I think that's where when you talked about having Saka in the team and whether or not it makes sense, like all these players under 10 million.
Because I think if Rodgers is actually going to be fit, he's going to play in that 10 for Villa, and he's going to be great. He scored like 10 goals, got a lot of assists last season. So I think then you suddenly save 3 million, and Fulkrug becomes Watkins, which is pretty good and nice.
Could easily become Watkins, right?
Which I think would be great. I think if you can get Watkins in there.
But would you want to go up in that fashion where you're just putting all that extra money back into Watkins? So you're then, instead of having Pedro and Palmer, you have Rodgers and Watkins.
I think, maybe take Watkins out and put Pedro in.
But, we could see, right? But Pedro...
And how much money do we have left?
1.5 million. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. My bad.
So I think at that point... Yeah, I kind of miss having Saka in there because Leeds at home, second game week. So I don't know. It's kind of a balance, isn't it, that we need to decide.
Yeah.
But I think
that's around where I like the structure of it, though.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting around the workings of what we want it to be. So
it's interesting for sure.
Good. Like I like that, and then I like having Watkins there in that last spot.
Yeah.
That feels really good.
So then at that point, You got your 4 mids, you got your 3 strikers, and then you still have your 3 defenders. This actually does look pretty solid.
That looks really good. I would probably stick with that for now.
Yeah.
That front 3 is unbelievable. Yeah. And then the defense is probably the best you could have. And then you've still got Fernandes and Palmer. You're missing Salah and Saka, but they're probably the only 2 players that I'd be really worried about missing in this whole team.
Yeah. Right. And then do you have any concerns about Watkins versus Gyökeres?
No, because I think you should start with Watkins. He's Prem proven, going to score goals. And I think if Gyökeres starts to explode, you just transfer easy across.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Is there anyone else in those lower ranges? Like, we're not going to move Ramsey. Reindeer's probably going to stay. We're kind of capped out at defense. There's not really a whole lot of moves we can make there. I mean, we could pivot down at keeper. I think you've got
the best keeper, probably 3 of the best defenders starting. You've got the only players that I'm not keen on is Reindeers, but then he's such a risk at 5.5, high risk, high reward. We can move him to Elliot Anderson, and I kind of like that. So I think for balance of our team and all things considered, I kind of love it so far.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Yeah, like Virts, we don't have kudos, but we weren't going to put him in the team.
It's no Salah, but I think otherwise, without Salah, I think that's probably the one player that I'm really worried about hurting us. Yeah. But the balance of our team looks fantastic. I would definitely go with that.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Sorry that we couldn't show you the final team. For whatever reason, this new UI system was just not working out for us. But hopefully, you got a glimpse of what this team is going to look like. We will tweet it out, so make sure you follow us at Across the Pod FPL on Twitter, and make sure you like and subscribe for all future content. Drop us a comment with some of your biggest dilemmas below. Tom, is there anything you want to say on the way out?
No, just lovely to be back. Excited for this season.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. We're out. Peace.
Peace.